Well, you can just call me Daredevil Pastor Doug after my experience in Florida this last week. I did a bucket list. Bucket list. Bucket list item. I skydived. And I'd been thinking about this for, oh man, I'd been thinking about this for 20 years or more. I thought that I would get this done by the time I was 40. Then I thought I'd do it by the time I was 50. And now I'm 59, turning 60. And I thought, I could die before I ever get this done. I think maybe I better try it. And it came about as part of a discussion where the topic came up. And I finally got adequate answers to the concerns I had. The primary concern that I had about skydiving was when you watched all these videos of people as they were free falling. And then when the cord was pulled for the chute to deploy, it just looked like it would smash your spine, like the compression on the spine would be horrible from the force of slowing down. And I was always concerned about what it would do to my spine, and that's why I never skydived. Well, it turned out that I was talking with a woman who was an avid skydiver, and she said, no, that's really not the case. And I was having that confirmed by some other individuals, so I thought, okay, well, we'll give it a shot. What was interesting was that the whole struggle about doing it took place about 24 hours before the jump. The day before, as I was trying to make up my mind whether to really do this or not, I was quite concerned. I was wondering, you don't have to do this. I don't think it was a matter of ego or machismo or anything like that. It was more rather a matter of, adrenaline junkie, trying something novel, really interesting, unusual, that kind of thing. And I have ridden motorcycle, I've been on quads, I've done some things that get the heart rate up, and I thought, well, this certainly would do that. So I decided to try it. And as I laid in bed the night before, fairly restless, just thinking again, I don't need to do this. Why introduce this risk into my life and things like this? And yet the other side was saying, well, it has to be fairly safe. So many people are doing this. When I woke up, I made up my mind I was doing it. And from that time on, it was interesting because the concern level actually dropped until actually the jump itself. It was really lowering all the way along. That was an unexpected thing about it, was that as I drove toward the jump site, which was about an hour away, I saw 2 billboards on the way. And I'm not a believer in luck. There's some people that believe in luck and let superstition and that kind of garbage run their life. Not me. So it didn't really throw me off when as I was driving toward the airfield, I saw a sign that said, "You will die and meet God." And I laughed, and I thought, that's hilarious. Not the concept of meeting God, but the idea that I'm getting a message here before the jump. And then the second one was for, I don't know what, a show or a series or something called The New Final Exit or something. And I don't know what it was pertaining to, but I thought, this is great. I'm getting all these messages. If I was superstitious, I would have turned the vehicle around and gone back. Well, anyways, so I get there, and it's this really chill culture. I thought I might be one of the few people there, a handful. There was like 75, 80 people. There were these jump junkies that were doing this day in and day out, several times a day. And it was almost like a mountain climber kind of feel. It was everyone in the gear and dressed casual and just very relaxed. And that put me at ease. I thought, well, if all these people are doing this over and over again, it can't be that dangerous. And then when I got my instructor, and they don't let you jump single, they let you jump tandem for at least the first several times, and then you have to take courses in order to jump solo. So I jumped with an instructor attached to me, and boy, this guy was terrific. He was really instilled with confidence. He had everything down cold. He knew his stuff, explained it extremely well, told me exactly what we're going to do, had me practice the position you have to be in as you fall, and that, and he had me work through this. And it was also matter of fact and confident that I had a great deal of confidence in him. I asked him how many times he had jumped. He said over 5,000 times. So I thought, well, he better know his stuff. So it wasn't too long after that we were getting into the plane, and you might think that the anxiety was getting ratcheted up, and it was the most unusual thing. Because now that I had made the commitment to doing it, now that I was going to put my confidence in the instructor, uh, I I was actually very calm. And we got to 8,000 feet, and the engine's droning as the plane is climbing, and he's going to hook up to be right against me as we jump. And he said, "Well, you're starting to get pumped up." I said, "Well, actually, I'm pretty calm." And he was a little surprised. He said, "Just wait until we get 13,000 feet." And I was like, "Okay." We get to 13,000 feet. My heart is not beating out of my chest. My breathing is pretty normal. And I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting. They have the door of the plane open so you can see the earth down there, and I thought, what is this? This is so different than I thought it would be. I thought I'd be filled with anxiety or concern. And instead, it's like, okay, all right, well, let's get it done. And he kind of slides with me up to the edge of the plane. You curl your legs over. You're supposed to arch your head back so that you're ready when you fall. And you can still see the abyss down there. And I'm like, I'm still not freaking out. And we get dumped over the side, and now the wind is rushing at you at 130 miles an hour. And you're wearing these clear goggles so that you can still see. But it's definitely an overload in terms of the physical sensations. The brutal force of the wind, or I should say, you as you're falling into this air, is very overwhelming to the senses. And he told me, keep breathing because the air rushes in easy enough, but it's very difficult to push the air out at 130 miles an hour. And I found that to be the case, that it was tougher breathing out. And so we're free falling for about a minute. And then he gives me the signal in front of my face, like so, that we're going to pull the cord. When the cord is pulled, it slows from 130-ish down to about 15 miles an hour in a matter of a couple of seconds. And so the other big physical sensation that I had was when he started to do tight turns. He said, "Well, let's do a little thrilling stuff, and he put us into corkscrew turns, and I wasn't prepared for that because it really caused an intense sensation of dizziness. Imagine looking at the plateau of the earth and all of a sudden it starts spinning around, and then he does the corkscrew the other way and the earth spins the other way. All the horizon is spinning, and it begins to get you discombobulated. And so we were able to dodge in and out of a cloud, and he was doing tight turns because, thinking about it, you actually have to turn fairly tight in order to land approximately where you jumped. You don't want to be 2 or 3 miles down the road. So when I landed, it hadn't been a tremendously pleasant feeling. There were a lot of things happening physically that were not fun. The rushing wind and a little bit harder to breathe, that wasn't a problem. The harness, you've got all your weight on these two straps on your legs in a harness, and especially as you do these tight turns, that's pulling hard, and that's a little bit of a pinch there. And so you feel that as you're going down. Not enough to be excruciating, but enough to let you know you're feeling it. And then the dizziness. So when I landed, it was more like, well, thank goodness it's over. It wasn't like, woo! It was more like, because my mind felt like scrambled eggs because of that dizziness factor involved. So it was so much different than I thought it would be. I'm glad I did it to have the experience. And here is really one of the biggest reasons why I'm glad I did it is because as I reviewed the dynamics, the mental gymnastics involved in addressing the fear, sucking up the fear, getting the courage to do it, and then the full commitment where once you exit the plane, it's one or the other. And having complete confidence in the instructor, that was really one of the biggest differences why I felt calm. Was others have gone through it. The instructor obviously knew exactly what he was talking about, and I had complete confidence he was going to get me through this. And the analogy presented itself that isn't that exactly what we're going to do at death? We're going to take the leap into the void. We're going to step out in faith into the unknown, and we don't know where it's going to go. And Jesus has been there. He's the one who's walking us through it. And you link up with the Savior, and you're going into this trip, and you just trust him. He's the one who's been to death. He's the one who's been beyond and back. And he's got the authority. He's got the experience. He's got the power. He's got the capability. And it's odd. But the verse that came to mind was Psalm 23, where the sheep is with the shepherd. And I won't fear, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because there you are. You're right there with me. You got your rod and your staff, and the voice of the shepherd calms. And I thought, wow. What a weird, interesting analogy. I don't know if other Christians have ever come up with this, but this was so interesting to me because everyone says it's death-defying. And, well, no, not really. It just has that impression because it's untethered. And I think it's relatively safe as far as these activities go. But boy, did it teach me something about putting my life into someone else's hands. We put our life into the hands of Jesus, and this taught me a little bit about what I'm going to want to do when I'm approaching death. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. Maybe it'll teach you a little something about praying, preparing, and it is certainly an exciting activity. If you're fairly good health, it's something different. But I hope that you will learn from the analogy of putting ourselves into the hand of Jesus when we fall out of that plane and are heading to death. Blessings.